Hey, everybody, and thank you for joining us on the Product in LA podcast. I'm your host, Ethan Cole, and this is an opportunity to shine the spotlight on some of the exceptional product leaders we have here as part of the LA product community. Really excited for this episode. We have Britney Russ with us.
Hi, Ethan.
Hey, Britney, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me on the show.
Oh, that's awesome. We're so excited. As always, the Product in LA podcast is brought to you by the Product Managers Association Los Angeles. It is 2,000 of LA's best and brightest product talent. You can find them at PMA.LA. They have monthly meeting events. They have a LA Product Leadership Council. And they also have a mentorship program, which Brittany is actually the head of. And actually putting you on the spot here, Brittany, do you want to tell us a little bit about the mentorship program?
Yeah, absolutely. So PMLA has had a mentorship program that started in 2020. We've helped actually over 270 students from underrepresented backgrounds through a one-on-one mentorship program. So we found that we thought we could be most effective in our community by helping empower students through mock interviews, resume reviews, and just general connection with a product leader in LA.
So for folks who really want to try to make a difference, try to make a better more diverse, better next generation of product people, it sounds like the PMA mentorship program really is something that they can do to give back and find rewarding.
Absolutely. And this is a great time to sign up. We are accepting mentors and mentees actually as we speak for our fall program that'll be starting end of this month.
That's awesome. And you can find this at pma.la/mentorship. Thank you so much, Brittany. And as I mentioned, today's guest is Britney Russ. She's head of the mentorship program at PMLA, but she also does a number of other things. That is just a purely volunteer form of giving back to the community. In her day job, she's director of product management at Code Academy in her present role. And some of her past roles include director of product at Planet Art and also at Evite. And one interesting fact you might find from her LinkedIn profile is Brittany is also a member of the board of trustees at the Altadena Arts Group. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that too?
Yeah, absolutely. So Altadena Arts is a grassroots nonprofit that really is all centered around giving a platform for underrepresented artists in the community to be able to be shown, to have art festivals, and it's also centered around a big kind of park initiative we want to make to also bring art into the community through park initiatives. So yeah.
That's awesome. Um, and as we know with product management, the journey is half of the game here. There's this generation hasn't gone to school for product management. Some of the up and comers may, but for folks who are around these days, they all kind of found their way into product. Love to hear your journey into product management.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say just like first off the bat, I absolutely stumbled into product management. When I attended college at UCLA, I was pretty convinced I wanted to work full-time at a particle accelerator. I took on a physics major. I was very dead set on this, had a lot of conviction. But that first freshman summer, I got an internship working for a lab that was related to particle accelerator work and very quickly realized that was not a fit and not really what I wanted my future to be. So I had that, so to say, come to Jesus moment where I was looking through the book of majors and wondering, what am I going to be doing with my life? But I knew I had a fascination with tech. And the one thing that internship ended up requiring was for me to learn how to code. And I realized I was way more interested in that aspect of the internship rather than the physics aspects. But I also knew I didn't want to be a full-time CS major. So I ended up gravitating towards a major called cognitive science. And it's so funny because I think it actually has some similarities with product in that it's very multidisciplinary. You can, each quarter looks very different. You can really, especially when you get to the upper div level, kind of cobble something together that suits your interests. And so that's exactly what I did. I did a lot on human interaction and did, coding classes, kind of behavioral, psychological things. So, I loved my time, but then once I got to a career fair, no one really knew what to do with me. I was especially going to tech job fairs because that's what I wanted to land in. But I wasn't going to be the strongest coder. I wasn't going to be the strongest designer. I was just a little bit of everything. And so I had a roommate and best friend who had worked at a company called Bluebeam Software, a B2B construction software company. And she had interned there for 2 summers. And she said, just talk to the CTO. He's the nicest guy. So I talked to Don, and he listened to my whole spiel very patiently and said, sounds to me like you want to do product. And I couldn't help myself. I said, let me go home and Google that. I have no idea what product is. I'll get back to you. And learned more about the field, started a role there as a product analyst, and the rest is history from there. Definitely fell in love with product. I've been over a decade in product and hope that the next decade is still in this field. So that's what I say is my origin story into the field.
That's funny. So cognitive science, was that a major at UCLA? First of all, go Bruins. And then second, is it a major at UCLA, or was it something you cobbled together as kind of independent studies that turned into actually, like, sounds like you majored potentially in product before that was a
Yeah.
thing?
So it is a major there. It's a Bachelor of Science. But I will say that it's something that, again, doesn't have a ton of definition in terms as far as what you have to do. There's so many classes that fit the requirements to get the degree.
That's awesome. And also sounds like what another exciting moment from your journey is the fail fast. It sounds like, summer
Yes.
after freshman year, you had an idea of what you want to do. You didn't mention it, but you mentioned like a European particle accelerator in another conversation. It sounds like it was CERN, and it turned
That
out
was
that wasn't your life.
that was the end goal. I would have loved to have worked at CERN. This was for getting data from a particle accelerator lab that was small, from a New York lab, actually. But I will say, yeah, if there were two things, one is absolutely the lesson of failing fast. Couldn't have said it better. So glad I didn't spend 4 years getting a physics degree. That application of seeing what the on the job actually looked like. And then the second thing is the power of networking. I was getting pretty discouraged on those job fairs of no one really calling me back and not really knowing my path forward. And all it took was that one conversation through, my roommate to set off the rest of my career. And I really think that's something that, you hear that power of networking getting mentioned, but that's definitely a testament in my story as well.
It's interesting. And mentorship is such a part of what you do now. Were there any mentors that helped you break into the field, or is that something that came along at the end, or where did this, passion to give back really stem from?
Yeah, I would say I absolutely have had multiple mentors throughout my career, but especially at my time at Evite, I had a mentor who continues to be my mentor today, who really took me under her wing. And I think the power of just seeing what that was able to do to accelerate my career, and
Mm.
then also really helped me establish my own brand and have confidence. And also, this was something where this was a fellow woman in tech. To have me feel comfortable as a woman in tech was also something I really had to navigate. And having someone be that helping hand was tremendous. And so that was one aspect of what got me connected to mentorship. Another one is I've been a UCLA One mentor, so able to kind of see that kind of the power of that program. And then lastly, I'll say is just honestly the research itself. If you look at what someone can do in terms as far as giving back, the research has shown one-on-one mentorship really is just one of the most effective ways to actually bring diversity into the workplace. So that was another kind of data point that called to me.
I couldn't agree more about the power of mentors, and I've had a number of them throughout my life, and that's part of what's so exciting of the PMA mentorship program provides for folks who may not have access to some of the mentors that some of the folks who came up through, the university systems are able to get.
Absolutely. And even working at the best companies and having incredible bosses, there's still a huge amount of value to have a mentor that's a safe space for you to go to and to develop and work on those skills that you might not be able to otherwise.
I couldn't agree more. It's such a powerful thing. Kind of going along that line, how do you do product management today? And sure, these conversations with mentors and the different projects you've worked on has, created, Britney Russ as a product person today. Love to hear more about what does that mean and feel to you?
Yeah, I definitely I love my role today at Code Academy. I'm focused on the consumer side of the business. Code Academy empowers learners to really kind of either get the skills or start from scratch to get into programming today at a very affordable way. So again, I think it's kind of democratizing access to a career in tech. And so I'm very connected to that mission. You can see there's a theme, for me a little bit. And so as a director, though, I'm out of necessarily the day to day of like working on features and products, and so there's definitely a
Right.
mentoring aspect of my team, making sure I'm showing up as a good leader, that I'm mentoring and growing the career of my direct reports, and really also thinking about how my footprint can scale at the company and also make us as a whole better. So that's just some things. I'll get more to your specific question though about
Yeah.
product and how we do it there. Um, so really at Code Academy, we kind of go through your standard process of discovery, design, execution, and data. I will say that like throughout my career, I've seen different teams do better jobs at different phases of those steps in product.
Okay.
So for Code Academy specifically, I can say I am extraordinarily impressed with our discovery and design DNA. So there's a huge culture and extensive qualitative, quantitative research that goes into and a lot of thought, documentation, and intention um, before a line of code ever gets written. And so there really is a ton of product discovery, which is great to see because I've also worked at teams where it's like very top down and just okay, let's go execute, run as fast as we can, and product discovery kind of sits on the side and doesn't get the love and attention it needs. The one thing that I think we're still refining and working on is the data piece. So I always like to say this about product is that you don't want to turn into a feature farm or factory. And so like one of the ways you do that is by making sure that as part of your product DNA is looking at the data of what did you ship? What did you learn from that? What were the maybe expected and unexpected outcomes and have that be such a input into what you do next and your strategy. So many times we just go right onto plucking what's next from the roadmap, right? Regardless of what we just released yesterday. So that's still a culture that I am working on cultivating and moving forward.
How are you doing that? And how are you doing that with your team and kind of this mentorship development mindset? Is this something that you're bringing to, I guess, your team and the organization?
Yeah, so at the team level, obviously, that's a little bit easier to kind of influence in the short term. So once we release something, making sure that there is kind of a post launch analysis that is shown with the team, standardizing that kind of what is included in that post analysis too. We also had a account with Full Story that we really weren't using extensively. And Full Story, for those who don't know, is a great platform that allows you to actually see how users are interacting with your site in real time. And so that was also an access to some of the qual, right? Because data tells one story and can tell quite a narrative, but nothing beats kind of seeing a user literally mouse around and where are they clicking and pausing and maybe toggling between. It can really kind of help you have a full picture. So through the Full Story kind of sessions, as well as the post-launch analysis, we package that up, put together. I always want them to put together hypotheses that we then explore as far as like why we got the outcome. And this is equally as important for something that worked as well as didn't work. I want to know if something worked, why it worked, so we can replicate it, maybe amplify it, apply it to other parts of the site, and share that learning out to relevant businesses. If it didn't work, it's fine. We have to be comfortable with failure, understand though the why behind it so we don't repeat that, and then figure out how we go ahead and iterate for the future, or if we're going to be relieving that product in tech debt. So that's something that we're, doing now as we release features. At the company level is more of just a visibility. So making the culture in the company that is me being very comfortable to not just go in on all hands and talk about our wins, but also to talk about what we learned if something didn't go to plan and
Mm.
what we're doing about it. And making sure that once we do have those kind of post releases packaged up, getting greater visibility in it. And so by us putting the example and setting it and not being fearless in how we talk about it, I think that then starts really kind of permeating in other teams as well.
And the listeners at home couldn't see me shake my head when you talked about launching and then having kind of not a post-mortem, but a review of the data. There's just too many times that teams will launch something and throw their hands up and say hooray, and maybe have a party, a pizza party or something for the launch. But that's as a product team, like that's where the work starts. That's where you start paying attention to customers. And I couldn't agree more with the full story. um, you know the ability to look through dashboards and your typical omniture, mixed panel, which whatever your flavor is. But then the full story, the ability to see the qualitative, the actual see the clicks. It's not like user testing where you would like give a prototype to someone and you could see what they're potentially clicking around with for a potential customer. These are real people in real time. um Love to hear your thoughts. Where do you think the future in this kind of review could go? The technology keeps getting better, the data keeps getting better from the dashboard level, the qualitative keeps getting better. Do you have a sense of where you would imagine it would go?
Yeah, I mean, I think so much of this goes back. Well, what I would love to see is that I think we've gotten leaps and bounds around the access to information, right? And so even if you think about what we can do in Looker or Tableau, we can really build these amazing dashboards. But those dashboards truly are only as powerful as the analysis you do on them. And too many times I see teams that just have a million dashboards and no one's looking at them. No one's monitoring them, and they're there. I kind of feel like sometimes it's a little bit of a safety net, like a comfort measure of like,
Mm,
well, we have the data if we need to go look at it, but there's not a culture of really actually doing analysis and actioning on that. So where I would love to see this field go is really helping empower that phase even more seamlessly, because the reality of the situation is that takes time, that takes a lot of investment and thought for a team to do that regular check-in, and sometimes that operational process can be very heavy for a team. I'm sure you've worked at orgs where you're having either weekly or bi-monthly business reviews. You have a deck where you got to go to all those dashboards and start filling in numbers and putting them all in to go present to your leadership team or to your boss, whatever level you're at, right? It's very labor intensive. So if there were tools that actually really could actually intelligently synthesize the trends and give you those
mm,
insights for you and really do that analysis, and then on top of that, be smart about benchmarking and triggers so that you can also be more proactive, right? In sense of you might not have been looking in this area, but having the tool actually say, hey, I'm actually seeing an interesting trend here, whether it be something that's going up or down, and alert you to it and then direct you to how do you double click in and actually find that those causes. That would be amazing, I think, for empowering product teams if someone could figure that out.
it sounds like it's a fun evolution of product. I can't help but think of maybe this kind of crawl, walk, run, where like the crawl is like when we started putting in, the omniture dashboards, people started to pay attention to the user behavior in the websites and apps. And then you got the walk phases where, all right, we're starting to put together Tableau dashboards. And then the run's going to be when product people really will be paying attention to the triggers, to your point, and what brings them back in instead of just trying to get a sense of what the behavior is. We'll have tools that will give us a very clear understanding of what the behavior is in a nuanced way. And then for us, it'll be about trying to figure out how to, improve that experience through whatever we can find to help, trigger them to continue to be able to do what they want even easier than they were in the past.
Yeah, and I think I won't get too much on the, as you can tell, I love data. I know you even know that from the mentorship program. I love working in numbers.
Yeah,
So I've always been a more data-driven product gal. But I think that's actually part of what GA4 is trying to do with insights and things like that. So I'm also watching that with some keen interest. So we'll see when they fully, I think next year they're going to force everyone over from the universal GA instance over to GA4. So we'll be seeing what those insights bring.
I'm actually not familiar with the GA4. What could you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, I'm no expert, so I'll just start there because if you have any listeners who are, I don't want to get called out for that. But my understanding is that they're really kind of shifting in actually a pretty significant way how you interact with GA.
And
And
this
so
would
a
be
lot of
Google
it,
Analytics that we're talking
yes,
about.
Google Analytics, thank you, which shows a lot of your kind of site insights, your traffic insights, and can be a very powerful tool when used effectively on a team. And so I think they're going to be doing a lot heavier in building out reports and then looking at engaged sessions. So like bounce rate's going to be gone. You're not going to have bounce rate. Like there's fundamental things there's changing, but one is that they have a whole new section that's literally called insights. And so it seems like it needs some setup for you to kind of show GA in a sense as far as what you need for the business. But yeah, it's supposed to be kind of more that proactive insight engine. So we'll see what Google can put together there.
That's great. And has there been, something, any previous role that kind of led you towards this data, or is this from the heart, from the get-go, you were kind of science minded and data was important? Or is it fostered along the way from something you did in one of your previous roles that led to Code Academy?
I think probably both. I think I always tended to want numbers. And I would say probably Evite was actually the CEO there really walked the talk on like being like we're a data driven team. I think many times you hear leaders or teams mention that, but it's not necessarily as part of the culture as it may sound. Evite, it absolutely was. And so that's absolutely where I gained my muscle. And we also had a stellar data team to partner with who were just outstanding in their skill set. So I learned a lot from them also in that journey. So that was absolutely where I kind of got those chops.
It's great to know. It's great for our listeners to hear, Evite might be the place you want to go if you want to have a CEO that, walks the talk in data-driven development. Um, and, the last question here, and this is the one, because we're product in LA, we want to make sure we keep the LA focus. And I know you are a product of LA, Brittany. One of the fun facts I was thought about giving, we talked about the Alta D, and I thought also about, hey, Brittany's also a a diehard LA sports fan.
Mm-hmm.
But what's the most LA thing that's either happened to you in product or not?
And I don't know why this is such a hard question for me. You think it would be so easy. Because yeah, I've been out in LA practically since high school, yeah, and I am a huge sports fan, watching Dodgers with some very keen interest this year. Um, the only thing I can think of is just to like how that most LA thing about me is just how I treat the city and driving in this city. So I probably would get shouted down for this, but like I consider pretty much the west side of LA from like West Hollywood on. Like, because I live in Eagle Rock. And so there's just this swath of LA to me that just feels so far away. And so even when my husband is like, oh, we should do a trip. Recently I was like, oh, well, we should go to Venice. He's like, Venice in Italy? I'm like, no, Venice Beach. Because like literally I haven't been there in years because the thought of like facing LA traffic is just too daunting for me. So yeah, so every few years we make it to Santa Monica or Venice Beach. It's very embarrassing, but that's probably the most LA thing about me is that I stay very local to my mile radius for
Oh, that's
LA traffic.
that is fantastic. That's a fantastic answer. And if anyone is listening here who's not from LA or has lived in LA for enough time, that is a real thing. There's the beauty about LA is there's a bubble, but there's just like 30 different bubbles, and there's someone and something for everyone. So if you're not having a great time in LA, it's probably you need to find your niche. You need to find your people because they're here and they're in perfect weather enjoying it, except for right now. And again, this is too timely for a podcast, but it is baking hot this week that we're recording this one. So apologies to everyone who's listening to this down the line. I hope we're in a less heated place. Well, I wanted to thank you again, Brittany. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you
And
so much for having me.
thank you again for everything you've done for the LA product community. If you hadn't heard it here a couple times, it's the PMA.LA Product Manager Association Los Angeles Mentorship Program, PMA.LA/mentorship. The current session is open to applications until when, Brittany?
September 20th.
Okay, so another 2 weeks for folks who are listening to this right away. If not, their annual sessions. Actually, there's 4 times I want to say 3 or 4 times. Brittany, you're the resident expert, actually the world expert at mentorship programs. I would say in general, you're very solid in mentorship programs, having both been a mentor in the UCLA Bruins network and also creating this mentorship program, PMA.LA. What are the sessions, and when could folks be looking out to sign up either as a mentor or as a mentee?
Yes. So we have 3 sessions. We have a fall, winter, and summer session. And so the fall session will be starting on the 26th. And so really the commitments are 4 1-hour sessions. We provide all of the materials you need as a mentor. So we will give you a rubric and guide on how to do a mock interview, how to do a resume review, how to do a cover letter review, whatever it is that you're looking to get done with the mentee. So it really is just those 4 1-hour commitments. We go ahead and match you. So we will go ahead and take care of all of the kind of communication leading up, the introduction, and those kinds of items. And then for the mentee side, I will say this is currently exclusive to either undergraduate or MBA students. So it does need to be a student and from an underrepresented background. So that's a criteria for that. And yeah, we're accepting applications now through the 20th, and then we'll do the matching where you'll get matched with either your mentor or mentee, and we'll kick off the program the next week.
That's great. And what's kind of also awesome about this program is that there are at least you mentioned 270 students who've been mentored. And I know of at least 2 of those who've gone on to be directors of product already. And the program's only a couple of years old. So,
Yes.
last pitch doesn't really need it, but last pitch is just basically if you're looking for some way to give back, you're looking for some way to make an impact, not just on your own world, but in someone else's, and help build this product community. This is a fantastic opportunity. So thank you again, Brittany, for everything you've done, everything you're doing. Want to thank our listeners for joining us, and we will see you next time on Product in LA.